Hi, everyone. This is Margaret Manning with 60 and Me. This is the place where women over 60 come to be inspired. My guest tonight is Donny Davis. Donny is the founder of the GaGa Sisterhood, which is a social network for grandmothers. And she's also the author of a book called When Being a Grandma Isn't So Grand. And I'm really glad to have you here, Donny. Thank you.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'm excited to talk to you, Margaret.
Thank you. There's so much to talk about because in our community of 60 and Me, which is about 50,000 women now, over 60, we have a lot of grandmothers and grandmothers at heart. And I really would love to chat with you about something that I've noticed, and we've had a conversation about this in the community, in my community, around the changing role of grandmothers. You know, the stereotypes that people are used to associating with grandmothers just don't define us. So how are we different?
Well, we're healthier, we're living longer, and we're more tech savvy.
For sure.
And we're way more active.
I think we're more active. We travel. I mean, we like to travel a lot. Some of us are working still, and sometimes full time into our mid and late 60s, and that's kind of our life now.
And some are even changing careers.
Yeah, or going back to school.
Yeah, going back to school or just after working 15 years as a college counselor, when I retired, I started the GaGa Sisterhood and reinvented myself. And now I'm a professional grandma.
And a lot of women are doing this reinvention that you describe. And you decided, as you said, to start this sisterhood, GaGa Sisterhood, where you have grandmothers all around the world get together and physically get together in the West Coast of the United States, but also online at your website, GaGaSisterhood.com. And you talk about all kinds of things. So tell me about this topic of modern grandparenting. How does that come up in your community?
Well, one of the speakers who we had last year was Stephanie Brown, who is a PhD psychologist and a specialist in addiction. Mm-hmm. And she talked about her newest book, which is called Speed. And it's not methamphetamine. Right, it's the pace of life.
Yes. Yeah.
And she talks about how we are kind of the last generation to understand what it means to have a slow pace life.
Yes.
Because our children and our grandchildren have this just go, go, go all the time. And if they're not going, they're looking at their technology, their smartphones, their iPads, yes, their computers. Yeah. And one of the things that we can do as modern grandmas is to give our children and grandchildren some downtime, some space where they're not doing anything and just can chill. And I've heard from a lot of grandmas that their grandchildren really appreciate that opportunity.
Yeah.
So the grandmas, I think today, are more involved in a really active way. They're either providing some childcare, and they're often supporting their children and grandchildren. Right. There's about 6% of the United States grandchildren are being raised by their grandparents.
Yeah, it's a big number. Mm-hmm. No, I think that you've raised some really good points. Lots of different threads there. The thing about children being overstimulated and just in a high-speed world, I watched a really great video this week. A school in England was offering mindfulness classes, meditation classes for children. And I think that's when people go to grandma's house, you know, you're not in the same kind of environment as home. You know, you're able to, like you said, relax a bit and shift the lens from crazy home, maybe busy, everyone's, running around, to, you're here, you're safe, it's cool. We can read or meditate or play.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's a respite.
Yes.
It can be a respite from the fast pace that they have in their lives, because children today tend to be overprogrammed. Mm-hmm. And they also can have a little bit too much with TV and screen time.
Yeah.
So it's really nice if you can say at grandma's house, we put away the screens and we have face-to-face communication.
Yeah. And the thing is, they don't know any of these stereotypes that we're supposed to be. Like, we don't have to know how to bake cakes or how to knit or, any of the traditional stereotypes of grandma. They just know that we're the one that listens to them and, does things that they enjoy. I mean, all these things that I'm sure come up in your conversations with, grandmas who want to have better relationships with these beautiful little, kids.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think finding interests, if you know your own gifts and what you enjoy doing, you can share those gifts with your grandchildren. If you like to tell stories, if you like to do art, if you love nature, one of our grandmas is a bird lover. Mm-hmm. And she loves to take her grandchildren bird watching, and then they come home and they sketch the birds that they've seen. Another one loves to travel, and she takes that travel with grandchildren is very popular. There's the Rhodes Scholar program is actually a program that provides grandchildren travel all over the world.
We actually have a partnership. 60andMe has a partnership with Rhodes Scholar, and they are great at this multi-generational holidays, and it is a great idea. And I think that what you just said is important, is that the grandchildren can see what you love to do. That you don't have to sacrifice all the things that you're passionate about. You just bring them in to it. But I have another question for you. And I don't know whether this comes up in your community, but what about, even though we're modern in our thinking, we're talking about modern grandmas, we still have our past, our own experiences to deal with. So what do you think about the situation where the modern kids are living a different life than we did? For example, there's a whole transgender phenomenon, in schools. And, how do you talk about that? Or having sex, children are, statistically having sex at a younger age than our generation did. How do those kinds of conversations come up?
They do. Yeah. In fact, they came up recently. Yeah. We were at a party with my grandchildren and my children, and the host of the party, a young girl, was talking about wanting to be open and accepting of all people, including gay and lesbian and transgender. And I said to my daughter afterward, do the girls, my granddaughters are 8 and 12.
Oh, they were there. The girls were there.
Yes, they heard that conversation. Mm-hmm. And I said, do they know about that? And she said, oh, yes, we've had a conversation about that.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that the younger generation is very open to these kinds of things that we need to learn about. Yes. And we can learn from them. I think it's really important that we understand that our children and our grandchildren are our teachers.
Mm-hmm. I think that what you're saying is very powerful, that we're actually both modern grandmothers, and they're modern children. We're moving into a whole new landscape, where the world isn't just like it used to be, that like you say, we're learning together. So,
and I think another thing, young children today are starting out earlier to think about the world. You see so many stories about young children raising money for cancer, for children, for refugees. They have a higher consciousness than we did when we were their age, because they have access to more information, and they see stories.
They're very sensitive to the environment and to recycling. They'll often remind you to do something that
my granddaughters. Yeah, they'll always say, turn off the water. You're wasting water, because we have a serious drought in California.
Yes. Are there any other topics around modern motherhood that have come up in your conversations with other grandmas that have caused challenges for them?
Well, I do think that the biggest one is not understanding today's parenting methods. And there's a big variety of them. One, I recently heard a grandma say that her daughter does not allow the word no in their house, that you're not allowed to say no or don't to the grandchild. And she said she had a really hard time accepting that, but that's the philosophy that the parent believes in. And so I think if you can try to say, That's really interesting. I've never heard that philosophy before. What's the motivation or the reasoning behind it in a non-judgmental way, but in a curious way so that you can understand it better?
And what do you actually say when the child is in danger? Do you have to say, let's discuss this, candle that you're holding?
I think you have to do diversionary tactics. Like, oh, let's look over here at this, or.
Well, no, but you've raised another, I think we can close on this point, is you've raised another good point, is that parents are modern parents too. We're all in this unknown territory. And the more that we can, like you say, listen, understand, question the motivations, the closer that we can all be.
It's the age of information, and we just have to be open to receiving it.
Isn't it cool? I think it's great.
Just like you and I are talking, and you're in Switzerland and I'm in California.
I know. Well, I'm so glad I got to meet you. I'm very happy that I've got to introduce our community to the GaGa Sisterhood, all the grandmothers and grandmothers at heart. Oh, I did have another question before we close. Very important one. I had it in my mind and then it slipped. I wanted to talk to you about surrogate parenting, because I was about to say, like, for grandmothers and grandmothers at heart, and I wanted just to talk to me about that phenomenon.
Well, sadly, I get a lot of emails from women who either don't have access to their grandchildren or don't have any grandchildren. Yes. And they would like to be a surrogate grandma. And then on the other side of the coin, I get sad letters from parents who have children without grandparents. Either they've been alienated from them, or they've passed away, and they don't have any grandparents. So there's a website, a Facebook page called Surrogate Grandparenting USA. Okay. And that's where this woman has taken it upon herself to match families. That's amazing. You become a Facebook friend, and then you could find a surrogate grandparent or a surrogate grandchild.
Okay. I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because I think you're right. And I'm recalling back in my mind conversations in our community with women who really, or say things like, I wish I was a grandmother, because we'll do a quote or something that will stimulate it. And so that's a great idea. Okay. Well, it's been great chatting with you, and good luck with your community.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.